What is going on, everyone? This is Zack Ainsworth, this is Brandon Taylor, and this is the Ride Along Sports Live Show. We are here whether you're listening to us in a car or you're watching our video or if you're at work. Whatever you're doing, we are glad that you chose to ride along with us today. This is your spot for college football coverage, specifically SEC, and we are excited. We are previewing Week 9 today. We're talking about scandals. We're talking about recruiting. Usually those go hand in hand, but this isn't a recruiting scandal, is it, Brandon?
Oh, no. There's no scandal here. No, not by a long shot. Nope.
This is, of course, if you keep your ear to the ground when it comes to college football, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Michigan. Seems like they're going to be in a lot of trouble, but we'll get to that a little later. And, Brandon, how about, something that was kind of a staple of the show early on that we haven't talked about in quite a while? Let's talk about recruiting. Recruiting is a huge part of college football, as you know. Yeah. Some people say it's about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. So let's see what Jimmys and Joes, these SEC teams, are bringing in and where they sit right now in the On3 industry recruiting rankings. Brandon, go ahead and pull that up for the people if you're watching our live show. This right here is what the SEC recruiting rankings currently look like. If you're on podcast, I will read those for you. Number 1 in the SEC and number 1 in the country in recruiting right now is the Georgia Bulldogs, followed by Florida Gators, followed by Alabama, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Oklahoma, LSU, Texas, Auburn, South Carolina, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Missouri, Mississippi State, and rounding it out is the Vanderbilt Commodores. And I know what you're thinking. Oklahoma and Texas aren't in the SEC yet. No, but we count them as SEC recruits because they will be playing their ball in the SEC, and that's where your favorite team in the SEC sits in the On3 industry recruiting rankings. Brandon, what sticks out to you out of all of these teams up here? I think I see a few that kind of jump off the page at me, but what jumps out to you, my friend?
Well, I think let's look at Georgia at number 1. All right, there's no surprise there. You got Alabama number 3. But what's between 1 and 3? The Florida Gators. Yes. And just so you know, Florida is number 2 in the SEC, but I've got a note here that says Florida is number 3 overall. It's kind of surprising to me. But if you look at that Florida team, they really need all the help they can get. Although, hey, we have to give them a little bit of credit. They're not as bad as we thought they would be.
5-2. Clearly going to easily make a bowl game, I would assume.
Yeah.
They have a tough second half of the schedule coming up. But, yeah, Billy Napier's got them playing pretty good ball. And it is surprising they're sitting at 2. That was the obvious one that jumped off the screen to me. When you think of Florida, you might think back of the Tebow days, Percy Harvin, all those guys. And if you are thinking that far back, then, yeah, Florida was in the top 5 in recruiting those years. But if you think of Florida recently, you don't really think of Florida being a recruiting powerhouse, especially under Dan Mullen. They would be in the teens most years when it came to recruiting, and that's such a talent-rich state. That's kind of why Mullen didn't work there, because he wasn't able to recruit. But now you see Florida up at number 2, and, man, nobody knows my favorite team out there, even though it's hard to see. But I don't like the Florida Gators, and unfortunately, Billy Napier, if you're not a Gator fan, and fortunately if you are a Gator fan, Billy Napier's got them rolling on the recruiting trail and on the football field. And if they recruit like this, they're going to be, there is no SEC East anymore, but they're going to be SEC title contenders if they string a few classes like this together, Brandon. And I'm with you. It's a little shocking, but if you're a Florida fan,
you love to see it. You absolutely love to see it.
I bet you're all in on Billy Napier now when you see this. There's question marks about him coming into this year, but if he recruits like this, I don't see any reason he wouldn't stick around for quite a while unless he just can't coach it up.
That's what he needed. Preseason, I know I was, you was as well. We were hard on him, Billy Napier. We knew that he had to get something done. He had to gain some kind of traction, and if they managed to actually put these players to good use, other than a certain number 4 on this list has done with previous recruiting classes. Number 4, Texas A&M. They're number 6 overall currently throughout all of college football. Can Jimbo, that is if Jimbo makes it, that's maybe a whole nother discussion, Zach, but if Jimbo makes it to next year, what's he going to do with these players?
Well, that's the thing. It's never been a talent problem with Texas A&M. They had the number one ranked recruiting class ever just 2 cycles ago. They have plenty of talent on that team now. You think about guys like Evan Stewart, guys like Connor Wegman, Anai Smith. That's just on the offensive side. Shamar Stewart, LT Overton, Walter Nolan on the defensive side of the football. They've got talent. It's never been a talent issue with Jimbo and Texas A&M. I think it's more of a coaching issue, and we'll talk about Jimbo a little bit later and if he's going to make it through this season. But, man, I can't really answer what he's going to do next year. That's kind of hard to answer with this talent because we've seen him consistently not be able to win with talent. So it's kind of an unknown. I guess we'll see. I mean, surely if he stacks another top 10 class, they've got to at least win 9 games one season, right? I mean, last year 5-7. This year they're sitting at 4-4 right now. He's the most underperforming coach in the country. It's not even close as far as the amount of talent he has versus the product that's on the field. And they have all the resources they could want at Texas A&M. And it's really just an unachieving program. So, yeah, Texas A&M sitting at 4. Good for Jimbo, but I've got to see it on the field before I believe.
You know, and let's look a little bit further just to get off of that note. You got Tennessee at 5, but take a look, and you mentioned this just a moment ago. Take a look at the newcomers in the conference of Oklahoma at 6 and Texas at 8. Now, these teams, when we look at the overall recruiting rankings, Texas is 9 and Oklahoma is number 11. Now, they've always had, because Texas is a brand, they've always had recruits. Oklahoma is always been a big-time program as well. And looking at this and where they are, you know, in the top at least 50%, Oklahoma in the top, third, nearly?
I'm not a math guy.
In the conference. Close enough, right? But if we look a little further, does this move to the SEC do anything for Texas and Oklahoma when it comes to recruiting, like high school recruits? Like, does it elevate them higher than they are now, or, you know, does it make much difference in the long run? Conference, SEC, or Big 12?
You know, for me, I would say it does. You tell a high schooler that you're no longer going to be playing in the Big 12, you're going to be playing in the SEC. I think that attracts more talent because the SEC is the best conference. And if you don't believe me, just watch the NFL draft, and you'll see there's more pro players that come out of the SEC than any other conference pretty easily, the SEC. You know, I think it's going to attract more talent to stay in state for Texas. Especially that's a state with a ton of talent. They're known for high school football, and they've lost a lot of talent over the years because kids wanted to go play in the SEC. Now that Texas is an SEC school, I think you'll see kids stick around. And Texas just landed 5-star wide receiver out of St. Louis, Missouri, Ryan Wingo yesterday or the day before. Big pickup for them. A lot of people thought he was going to Missouri. He ends up at Texas. And Texas is rolling. 1 loss on the season to Oklahoma right now. Oklahoma's rolling too. But Texas is also rolling on the recruiting trail, and I think they're going to be good for a long time. And I think when people first heard Texas was joining the SEC, they kind of laughed and thought, oh, yeah, please bring Texas on. But now I don't think people have that same sentiment. I think there's some teams, especially in the bottom half of the SEC, that shouldn't be happy Texas and Oklahoma are coming because let me tell you, they can win in the SEC. Texas beat Alabama earlier this year pretty convincingly. They've got good ball players, and they're only going to get better, in my opinion, with this move to the SEC. I think it was a great move by Oklahoma and Texas and by the SEC, even though some of the bottom-tier schools or some of the middling schools, I don't think they're going to be very happy with the results when Texas and Oklahoma move over.
Well, let's look at number 9. If we take a look just past Texas, is Auburn. And if you're Hugh Freeze and you're looking at what you have, the production or the lack of production that your team is having right now, especially, oh goodness, at the quarterback position, They do have one recruit so far, 4-star Walker White out of Little Rock, Arkansas. What's Hugh Freeze like? What is his? How does he go from here? Like, what does he do? Because this team is struggling. Obviously, quarterback is a good start, but there's also some good defensive players in this class so far. Like, if you're Hugh Freeze, what do you do from here?
So Auburn's a very interesting school in a very geographically interesting place, and just a lot of interesting things. What I mean by that is Auburn is in the same state as Alabama. They're surrounded by Georgia. Florida tries to get a lot of the same kids they do. Tennessee, you got the Mississippi schools. Auburn is never going to out-recruit Alabama. Let's just go ahead and say it. Auburn is the second school in that state. It's pretty clear. Alabama has reigned dominant. Yes, Auburn has knocked them off a few times, but on the recruiting trail, Alabama's always going to get more talent. But you know what Auburn has an advantage in? I think it's the transfer portal. I think that's where Auburn can try to compete with some of these bigger schools. And we saw him do it a lot this year, but this is Hugh Freeze's first year. I'll give him a buy on that. And he does have his quarterback of the future, Walker White. That's a great place to start. I mean, Hugh Freeze, the quarterback is a huge position for him. It's a huge position for anybody, but he's an offensive-focused coach. Think about the QBs he had at Ole Miss. I believe he elevated their game. You saw him elevate Bo Wallace to the point where I believe he beat Alabama, correct?
Yes.
And Bo Wallace wasn't a great quarterback, but he was in a great scheme that Hugh Freeze had designed. He had Chad Kelly. He made Chad Kelly look like a Heisman contending quarterback. That was a kid who got kicked out of Clemson and had to go JUCO. What I'm saying is Hugh Freeze gets the most out of his quarterbacks. Walker White's making a good decision here by going to Auburn. But I think Auburn, you're never probably going to see him in the top half of recruiting in the SEC, even though Hugh Freeze is a great recruiter. But watch out in the transfer portal. I think for years to come, Auburn's going to be a major player for guys that are looking for a new home. He's in the SEC. They have a great tradition down there. He has a good pedigree. He's a well-known coach. It's going to be a real attractive place for kids out of the portal.
And I agree with that. Like, that's how you get your quickest. You look at some teams and Ole Miss. I mean, of course, it was different at that point when he was coaching there, when he was head coach at Ole Miss back from 2012 to 2016, 2017. You know, it was different back then. And now I think, like, the transfer portal is, like, it's, especially if you're a team like Auburn, that's a good way to get players that you can immediately, that has that experience, that you can, and yes, there's always a risk. I mean, there's a risk with a high school recruit. If he's 5 stars, if he's 4 stars, there's always that risk, but you can at least get these transfer players that have had experience at other programs that could mend well with what you're doing. But let's look on further, Zach, and just look at let's see, 10 through 16. I mean, what's your overall, if you're like a Mississippi State fan, for example, Vanderbilt is 16, but Mississippi State's 15. Let's just work our way back now.
So, for most of these teams, they're sitting about where they would sit in the SEC most years. Ole Miss, they do a lot of work in the portal. They don't necessarily recruit at the high school level at an extremely high rate. They kind of, I think, Ole Miss and Auburn are going to take sort of the same model, in my opinion. They're going to be a good transfer destination for kids looking for a fresh start. Arkansas, not a very talent-rich state down right now. I mean, I'm not surprised they're sitting there at 11. Beamer needs to recruit a little better. I thought South Carolina would be a little higher on this list, but look at the teams ahead of them. Like, who are you going to replace? I mean, the SEC is just so stacked. I tell you one, though, that just jumps off the page to me. I'll make a comment about Mississippi State since you brought them up. They need to worry about retaining some of their players. 4-star receiver out of Sardis, Mississippi, J.J. Harrell. I have intel that he has possibly looking at other schools. I know Georgia's kind of made a push after him, a few other SEC schools. That's a big one. That's a 4-star receiver. Mississippi State's got to try to hold on to him. P.J. Woodland, their 4-star corner, just decommitted and went to LSU. You can't let these schools come in and raid you of what you do have when you're sitting this low in the SEC recruiting rankings. Missouri, this is the interesting one to me. They're sitting at 6-1 right now. You got to think that they're going to jump up a little bit before the end of the line because they're having such a great season. And, You know, they have the number 2 overall player in Williams Nwaneri committed. That 5-star we talked about a while back, 5-star defensive tackle, number 1 player in the state, is committed to Missouri. They just missed out on Ryan Wingo. But the year they're having, Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, all these guys out there, Chris Abrams-Drain, these guys they have out there balling. They're 6-1. They could very well win the SEC East. You got to think kids are going to look at that and think, man, I can go to Missouri. Maybe they're on the rise. And I think Missouri will jump up from 14th in the SEC. I could see them finishing somewhere around that 9 spot.
I agree. And, like if we look at this and if we just take the, what do they call it, the 10,000 foot viewpoint on all this right now, and this will change, I mean, as the season progresses, as we get on into spring, but, I mean, is everybody about where you would expect them, other than like a Florida, for example, that seems to be like a pretty big outlier? I mean, is everybody about where you think they are? Because
the only one I'm kind of put off by is the Missouri being so low, just because of the success they are having on the field. But like I said, I think that'll change. And then South Carolina, you would think, because Shane Beamer's kind of known for being a player's coach and a good recruiter, but I think they might be a transfer destination too. I mean, because look, like I said, South Carolina, yes, they have a recruiting coach, but are they going to out-recruit Texas, LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, A&M, Alabama, Florida, or Georgia? I don't see it. And yes, that puts them 10th in the rankings, which is kind of crazy. That's just how deep the SEC is. But yeah, no one else besides those two is really that shocking to me.
Okay. Yeah. I feel the same way. I mean, Tennessee, you would think they're always a hot pick. LSU at 7, especially with the offensive production. And look, I mean, I think there's a lot of players that might think, hey, we can go to LSU and we can. What's Jaden Daniels? Is he?
He's got to leave after this year.
He's gonna be leaving after this year. So who's behind him?
Garrett Nussmeier, 4-star QB.
So
he's kind of going to
so
take
what's
the reins.
what's the what do you do on offense then? Are you what do they go after this year? Like
this year, they're going to have to replace some key guys: Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, probably Mason.
Huge names.
Yeah. I'm not worried about LSU, really. I know they're 7th, and that looks kind of low, but you got to think overall they're probably, I guarantee you, they're in the top 15 in the whole country, or close to it if they're not, and they're 7th in this. I think they're actually top 10 in the whole – it's close. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they're recruiting at a high level. I'm not worried one bit about LSU.
One other thing, and before we move on to the next topic here, one question that I'd like to ask, and we can talk about here. And, it's 2023, things are different these days. And we're talking about a lot about conferences. We had a lot of discussion prior to the season about conference, the state of college football and all that good stuff. But conference prestige, do these kids that are in high school, these high school recruits, do they care about conference prestige, as like they did in the past? Because I feel like used to, you were pretty like the SEC, and obviously the SEC is always, it's a hot place to go,
Yeah.
But overall, does that really matter? Like, does the conference matter to a kid that's in high school looking to go to college and make some big bucks someday?
I mean, I think it does, but I think it matters more who is the player. I mean, all these kids have unique personalities. Mm-hmm. Some kids would rather go start at a G5 school than wait their turn on the bench at a SEC school. Some kids would rather go wait their turn at an SEC school because they know they're going to practice against better competition and play better competition. Really just depends on the kid. I mean, I don't think there's a kid, though, that grows up in the South that doesn't want to play in the SEC if they had the offer.
Totally. Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt. No doubt.
We were planning to get into the Michigan stuff after this, but let's actually save that for the end of the show, Brandon. Throw you a little curveball because we have a guest, and he is waiting on the line right now. We have a guest picker this week. We're going to be bringing in a guest picker. He hails from Bemis, Tennessee. He is a product of Southside High School in Jackson, Tennessee. He is Taylor Chase, big Vol fan, and he is going to be our guest picker today. Taylor, how are you?
I'm good, and I also hail from Hickory Valley, Tennessee, so get that right.
Well, excuse me, from Hickory Valley, Tennessee, Taylor Chase. All right, Taylor. So I'm here with Brandon, obviously, and we're looking at some of this SEC slate that's coming up, and we're going to kind of go here in chronological order. First up on the slate this week is South Carolina at Texas A&M, and it's at 11 a.m. on ESPN. This is an interesting game because, I think this is a big one for both schools for two different reasons. I think this one's a big one for Jimbo Fisher because if you lose to 2-6 South Carolina at home as a 2-touchdown favorite, I think it might be the end for Jimbo and A&M if that's the case. And on the other side, this is big for South Carolina for Shane Beamer in the fact that, is he going to allow his football team to roll over and die because they're 2-6? Are we going to get a inspired effort out of South Carolina, or are they just going to kind of roll over? We're kind of going to see if Shane Beamer still has control of that locker room because if they lose this one, it's going to be really hard to make a bowl game. Are they 2-6 or 2-5, Brandon? 2-5. I've been saying 2-6, but if they lose this and fall to 2-6, it's going to be really hard to make a bowl game. And then you're going to wonder how much do these kids want to play anymore when it doesn't feel like there's much to play for. And we'll kind of see if Shane Beamer can keep that locker room fighting or if they're just going to give up. But I think this is a big one for those reasons. I don't think it really plays much of a role when it comes to who's going to represent the West or the East in the conference title game. These teams are basically out of it. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be a good game. Taylor, what do you think of these points I brought up about Shane Beamer and Jimbo Fisher? Do you think that if Jimbo loses this one that he could possibly be on the way out?
It's tough to say because we've all thought that for a while, that he's been walking on eggshells with, every possible game that he could lose. But if you lose to a 2-5 South Carolina team, I mean, you got to be thinking in the back of your head, this is probably it for me. Whether it's right now, whether it's at the end of the season, I've completely, if he were to lose that, I think the season's down the dump and it would be a total waste of all that absolute talent that they've got down there. So, yes, if Jimbo Fisher loses this one, I think, there ain't a buyout, high enough that they won't pay. On the flip side of that, Shane Beamer, I look at it from, kind of the same lens, but a little differently too. Relative to, I guess, really South Carolina in the past, they've put together a nice little recruiting class for this upcoming cycle. I don't know if, you had me muted, so I couldn't hear y'all. You didn't have me mute, so I don't know what you just said about recruiting a little bit ago. So it's not top 15, I don't think, or top 10, but for them, it's pretty good. If you lose this game and go to 2-6, what are you going to tell these recruits? We're building something. No, I think they're going to see right through that, and it's going to be falling apart even worse than it is right now. So, like you said, for both of these programs, for both of these head coaches, this is an absolute must-win. Do you want me to get into what I think is going to happen in this game, or do you want to make some more points and talk about a little bit else?
Well, I'm going to toss it over to Brandon and kind of see what he thinks about this game. I'll go ahead and give my score prediction and what I think is going to happen. Then Brandon can give his, and then we'll throw it back to you, Taylor, to kind of see what you think is going to happen in this game. For me, it really comes down to the line of scrimmage, just about like every SEC game. And I think Texas A&M's defensive line is going to feast on this South Carolina offensive line. They've been pretty awful this year. Texas A&M is one of the best defensive lines in the SEC, if not the best. They get after the quarterback. They do a good job against the run unless they're playing Tennessee. But I think that's where Texas A&M is going to win this game. Look, it's at Kyle Field. Texas A&M notoriously plays better at home than away. I know it's an 11 a.m. kickoff, but I still think fans will show up. I think Max Johnson takes care of the football enough. He's got Aniyah Smith, Evan Stewart out there. He'll take care of the football enough. He won't make stupid decisions. But I really think Texas A&M is going to ride their defense in this one. I don't think their offense is what I would call explosive. But I think A&M rides their defense in this one. I think they come away with a win, and Shane Beamer has to look down the barrel of a 2-6 start and kind of figure out where to go from there. If he can rally the troops and somehow pull off a bowl game, or if they're just going to roll over and be absolutely pitiful. But I'll take Texas A&M to win this one. They're 14-point favorites. As far as covering or not, I think that number's about right. I'll go Texas A&M 28, South Carolina 13. 28-13, Texas A&M over South Carolina. Brandon, what do you think about this game?
Oh, boy. You said a lot there. Hey, South Carolina is not – well, I don't even want to say not who we thought they were. Spencer Rattler is started off promising. I say this every week, and it's been kind of a disappointment. They can't get anything done. Texas A&M, however, like every game is a must-win for Jimbo. Like it's becoming like it's crunch time. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Put up or shut up at this point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be in College Station at 11 a.m. I don't know if that really matters or not. I don't know if that favors Texas A&M. But you say 28-13. Yeah. I think you're about right. We'll go – I'll say 31-17 A&M.
31-17 A&M for Brandon, 28-13 A&M for me. Taylor, what do you say?
I agree with what you said about, it being so important in this game about the line of scrimmage. I mean, South Carolina, they still got some decent, I guess you'd call them, relative to everybody else in the SEC, decent, lines. But when you stack that up against what A&M's bringing out there in the front, to me, I don't know. They don't have to. Texas A&M does not have to beat them throwing the football in this one, in my opinion. I think their lines of scrimmage are going to win them this ball game. Something I'm looking to see from A&M is really getting the ball, primarily like when they want to throw the ball a little bit. Get Aniyah Smith out in space. Get Evan Stewart out in space. Them are your two best playmakers. Force feed them the ball. I'm a Tennessee fan, obviously. In the Tennessee game, you didn't hardly see any of that. And I thought they were going to do whatever they could to get them the ball in that game, and they just didn't. So if you're Bobby Petrino, if you're Jimbo Fisher, I think if for some reason, you can't, complement the passing game with the running game, you got to just have to force feed those two. And I think even then, I think it'll be enough. I'm feeling, and this is just a feeling, this is just a thought, I'm feeling about a 17-point game in this one. So I'm saying Texas A&M is going to cover this football game, going to win and going to cover. I'm saying they're going to win 31-14.
31-14. So all of us are relatively close on the score prediction, and we all agree that Texas A&M will win this game. Look, if it's about 3 o'clock on Saturday and Jimbo Fisher lost this game at home to South Carolina, you might hear a beeping sound. That would be the U-Haul backing up to his ranch there in College Station. Anyway, let's get into the next one. At the 2:30 slot, that signature CBS 2:30 slot, it'll be Georgia as the road team, technically, the away team in Jacksonville for a neutral site game against the Florida Gators. And this is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. So, anyway, it's Georgia versus Florida. Florida maybe a little better than most people predicted. Certainly better than I thought that they would be, sitting at 5-2 this year, playing a 7-0 number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs there in Jacksonville. This game's interesting, okay? So it's Georgia's first game without Brock Bowers. I think that's kind of the talking point that everyone's making. If you listen to sports radio or if you listen to some of the big podcasts out there, they really say, this is the game without Bowers. This is the game we're really going to see what Georgia's about. Um, and I think the bigger storyline, and I have seen some people say it, don't get me wrong, but I think the bigger storyline going into this one is not that Brock Bowers is out necessarily. I think it's Carson Beck. I think that's going to be who we find out the most about. I think we know Georgia has a pretty stout defense. They're not as good as they have been the last 2 years, but they're still a pretty stout defense under Kirby Smart. And we've seen Carson Beck shine, but it's been with Brock Bowers. So now we're going to see, is Carson Beck the real deal against a Florida defense who, look, they're not the best defense in the world, but they're certainly not the best defense. Or they're not the best, but they're certainly not the worst defense in the world. This Florida Gators defense, they have a good front seven. Now their back end, it's a little shaky, a little iffy. They got absolutely torched by Kentucky on the ground, but we'll talk about that in a second. But we're going to see what Carson Beck is made of. And everybody's kind of talking about Brock Bowers being out. Brock Bowers is out. Brock Bowers is out. That's going to stifle UGA's offense. He's Superman, which he is. And he's great, and the offense is centered around him in a lot of ways. But I don't think enough people are talking about Carson Beck. And I'm not saying talking about him in a good way or a bad way. I'm saying this is where we really find out what he's about. This is a homecoming for him. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. He grew up a Florida Gator fan. He was committed to play baseball at the University of Florida. All his family and friends are going to be there. Does that make him nervous? Does that make him play hero ball? I'm not sure. But I think too many people are focusing on Brock Bowers being out and saying, there goes their offense, when they should be focused on Carson Beck. Look, if he comes out here and he slings 4 touchdowns and 400 yards, the Heisman race is wide open, and he's going to put himself right in the middle of that. If he comes out and he struggles and he looks bad, you're going to see Georgia fans, you're going to see people questioning, does UGA need to make a change? That's just how it goes when you're on top. Every little thing's under a microscope. No win is ever by enough points. You can't satisfy anyone. But I think this is the game we really find out what Carson Beck's about, and I think that's what this game comes down to. I'll save my prediction for a minute. Taylor, let's go to you. What's the storylines into this game? What are you looking at? What do you make of this?
You're looking at Carson Beck, which I think that's very reasonable. I'm going to take it just a slightly different direction here. I'm looking at all the different playmakers you have out wide. Obviously, like you said, the big talking point with everybody, and everybody thinks they got a shot at Georgia now, is because Brock Bowers is gone. But you still got some pretty nice pieces on the outside. A week, they've had a week to prepare and to maybe get some guys ready, or to maybe install some little bit other little things to focus more around those other, those wideouts and those other playmakers. People like Rosemary Jack Saint,
Ra Thomas, Ladd McConkey.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett. I just couldn't think of Ra's name for a second. It just left my mind. I'm looking for one of those guys to step up in a big way. Maybe multiple. Maybe they come out and they just, all share the wealth. But you got to have one of those guys step up big. And I think they've been preparing for that all week because obviously Brock Bowers, that's a huge blow. But with Florida, I think what you got to watch for in this game, they did this with Tennessee. And I'm not trying to compare Tennessee and Georgia. Georgia's still, a few levels ahead in terms of talent, in terms of everything that program is. And I'll be the first one to admit that. But what they did against Tennessee is they, on offense, they got the ball out quick. They did not allow, a lot of pressure to be forced on them. I'm looking for them to do some of that and see if that works for them. Because, you get them big Georgia D linemen coming at you. You don't want that. They will put you in the dirt, and you won't have success. So I'm looking I'm looking for that. How successful is Florida's run game going to be on Georgia's D line, and on what are the linebackers? Are they missing gaps? Are they hitting the hole right, and are they making plays? I'll go ahead and give my prediction. I know you want to save yours for last since you're a big Georgia fan. What's the spread on this? Remind me, Zach.
14.5.
14.5. Florida, I could see a scenario where Florida, plays this one competitive and keeps it somewhat close. I don't see a way for them to win this football game, but I see where they could keep it close. I'm going to say Georgia covers the spread, and maybe it's late, but I think at least for the first half, I think Florida is going to come out playing some inspired football, and they're going to have a few things working. But I think after a little bit of time of what they're doing, I think Georgia and their coaches are good enough to make adjustments, and they're going to shut that down. At least if it's not for an extended period of time, at least enough to win the ball game. And I think it'll get them to cover. Give me Georgia 34, Florida 17.
All right, Brandon. Taylor goes 34-17, taking the Dogs. Let's throw it over to you. And what do you make of this one?
That's a lot of information out there. Obviously the storyline, like you mentioned, like we're all talking about Brock Bowers being out of this game. I mean, how can you not talk about that? He's one of the greatest football players, at least currently, and a tight end at that. But I think Georgia is not merely a one or two dimensional team. I think they don't need to just depend on one player, and they don't. I mean, Carson Beck, like you said, Zach, I think he's going to have a great game, and I think, this would be a great time. This would be like a little hint of adversity. He's got to maybe throw the ball around, maybe spread it out a little bit more, spread it around a little bit more is what I'm trying to say. And I think he has a chance of really showing like what he is, and as a possible future Heisman contender. I know that you put him really high on your quarterback list at the beginning of the year, or before the season started, I should say. But I think they get it done. Obviously, I feel like we're all really close on these scores. That's like a trend here. I was mulling this over, and I think Georgia gets it done. I don't think there's any surprises that Florida comes up with an upset here. Just not now. Brock Bowers or no Brock Bowers, I think Georgia gets it done. And I say, give me Georgia. I was going to say 37-16.
37-16. He takes the Dogs to win. Yes, Taylor?
I agree absolutely with what Brandon said about, Georgia's their offense is not merely one-dimensional, or, they just have one thing they're going to do, which would, everybody thinks, oh my gosh, Brock Bowers, this is all they do. They just get him the ball. No. What I feel like in watching Georgia and things, though, and why I say, who's going to step up, one of them, playmakers, I feel like, their offense works the best when they're doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? And they're doing different things. They're running the ball. But I feel like, and it's been Brock Bowers, but I feel like their offense runs the best when they have one guy take over a game. And they have one guy who if something just goes wrong, they can look at and say, go make me a play. Go win me this ball game. So that's my thought on that. I hope that makes sense. I could be off on that. They might just spread the wealth and dominate Florida regardless. But like I said, I just feel like when they have one guy that they can absolutely depend on, and a guy that will take over the football game for them, I feel like when that happens, everything else works.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. At the Auburn game, Brock Bowers won them the Auburn game. had 150-something receiving yards in the second half of that game and single-handedly pretty much beat Auburn. He took over that game. He dominated. As far as this game goes, this is how I see it. I've thought about this all week. I've thought about it a lot. This is how I see this game playing out. I think Florida knows that Brock Bowers is out, obviously. And I think Florida's going to try to stop the run and then also get after Carson Beck and make him make quick decisions now that he doesn't have his safety blanket in Brock Bowers to throw the ball to when he feels, I got a burp, when he feels pressure. But, I think UGA is going to do something that they did against Kentucky. It's kind of unconventional, but, a lot of people say you run the ball to set up the pass. That's not what Georgia did against Kentucky. They passed the ball to set up the run. And I think that's what Georgia's going to do in this one early against Florida. I really think Mike Bobo and them are going to come out aggressive. I think they're going to come out and throw the ball a lot on the first few drives. I think they're going to run some play-action deep shots on the first few drives to see if Florida will bite. I think they are going to try to attack the secondary of Florida. That has kind of been their weakness throughout the season, is their secondary. And I think Georgia's going to have a lot of scripted throws, a lot of quick game stuff with Carson Beck to get him comfortable, to get easy screen passes, swing passes, stuff open like that to get Carson comfortable, and then they'll do play action, hit him over the top. And I think that'll open up the run game. I think in the second half, you'll see UGA start to run the football, and these defenders might take an extra step back when the ball's snapped because they think a pass is coming. I think it's really going to open up the run lanes. And I think maybe a little unconventional, but I think UGA uses the pass to open up the run game. And I think we see a big first half from Carson Beck. I think you'll get on Twitter and you'll see people talking about Carson Beck. I think he'll, maybe have 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first half. And then I expect UGA to really pound and run the ball in the second half when they have a lead. Give me the Dogs to win. Very similar to y'all's score. This is the score I've been sitting on. Give me the Dogs to win 31-17. And they don't cover because that's 14 points and it's a 14.5 spread. I believe that's 14 points. I'm not a mathematician. But, give me the Dogs to win, not to cover, 31-17. And they continue the undefeated streak, and they will welcome Missouri next week. All right, let's get into the next one. This is this could be bowling shoe ugly. It is Mississippi State at Auburn. Man, I don't know how many of y'all wasted 3 hours of your life watching that Mississippi State-Arkansas game last week. But that was, I've watched paint dry and had more fun. That was ugly. That was ugly football, and we might be in for it again because Auburn has a great defense, but they can't pass the ball. They run the ball about 90% of the time. And, boy, I can't tell you anything Mississippi State can do right. I don't know if Arkansas was that bad or Mississippi State's defense was that good. I think it was a little mixture of both. This game, this is 2 first-year head coaches. This would be a big win for either program because Auburn doesn't have a conference win and Mississippi State's sitting at 4-3. If they pop to 5-3, it's very likely they're going to go bowling with their remaining schedule. So this is a big game for 2 first-year head coaches. I know Hugh Freeze would love nothing more than to get his first conference win in front of the home crowd there in Jordan-Hare. Taylor, what do you think about this game? What's kind of the headlines for you? Obviously, I don't think there are going to be very many points scored in this one.
I don't know if there's any headlines that are worth mentioning that, we could talk about from this game. This just seems to me like it has all the makings of just a, like last week, an ugly, terrible football game to watch. What I'm interested to see is how Auburn – I don't even know. I'm interested to see how they're going to run the football or what they're going to attempt to do against Mississippi State. Mississippi State's sitting in the FBS. Their rushing defense is about really middle of the pack. They're in like the 60s, giving up about 127 a game. Auburn, not great throwing the football. Mississippi State, nah. I mean, you got Will Rogers, but he's running this different offense, and it's just
It's ugly.
It's gonna be ugly. Do either of y'all know the over? No, okay. The over is 41 in this game. I'm gonna take the under in that.
Oh, I'm taking it. I'm taking it all day.
Taking the under. I'm not a bet man, but if I was, I'd bet on that under. I honestly, this is just pitiful. I don't have many thoughts on this. Auburn's at home. I think that's going to play a large advantage in this. I think Auburn's fan base is still, they're pretty riled up. They've suffered through the Harsin era right now. They've got some excitement with Hugh Freeze and what, he's doing. He's recruiting pretty well. And they're fired up, I think. And this is a 2:30 slot, so they'll be there and they'll be ready and fired up. The spread's 6.5. Man, I don't know. Give me Auburn to cover.
Auburn to cover. What? Give me a score on that, Taylor.
Give me. Give me 17-10.
Go ahead, Brandon. What you got on this one?
That is exactly what I had on it. 17-10. It would actually be maybe somewhat exciting if they managed to score so many points in this game. I mean, look, Taylor pretty much said just about all you can say. Will Rogers and this Mississippi State team. I think I mentioned a identity crisis, much like with that Arkansas team. This Auburn team, not much better. They're really trying to find themselves too. Not getting that any production, really, on offense, especially at the quarterback position. Really, either quarterbacks in this team. I don't know. I just don't see much happening. And, but yeah.
17-10.
17-10. I don't really have much more to say.
Well, I was pretty close to y'all because I'm going Auburn 17-13. Auburn not covering. Just a fun prop here. Over or under a half a defensive touchdown. I'll take the over. I'm going to say Auburn. Auburn gets a defensive touchdown.
Yeah, I'll take the over.
Yeah, at 17-13, I think. Look, Auburn, they're not a great team. They're 3-4. They've got a good defense. Like that is a fact. Auburn has a pretty good defense. Their offense is just that terrible. But they do have an offensive coach there, so maybe he can figure it out. But
so are you saying that defensive touchdown? That's the game winner.
Yeah, pretty much because I had them winning by 4.
All right. So other than that, how do they score these points? What are they doing?
Run, kick field goal, run. 17-13, give me Auburn to win, and it's a first conference victory for Hugh Freeze, and the fans go home happy, and Bruce Pearl's probably shirtless somewhere. All right, let's move on to the next game. And this is the one we brought Taylor Chase on for because he is a Vol expert. He knows all the rumblings on Rocky Top. And his Tennessee Volunteers are traveling to Kroger Field to play in Lexington, Kentucky against the 5-2 Wildcats. Tennessee comes in 5-2 as well, both 2-2 in the conference. Tennessee's ranked 21st. Kentucky is not ranked. Taylor, why don't you just go ahead and take it away, man? What do we see in this game? I know you've been thinking about this all week because we're obsessed with our football teams to probably an unhealthy amount, but it's okay. It's only a few months out of the year. What do you see in this one?
Yeah, this is my bread and butter right here. I'm going to try to keep my orange tinted glasses off right now and just, be logical, and I will be for the most part. First off, what are the strengths? Let's look at the offense on each side, Kentucky and Tennessee. What's Kentucky's strength? That would be Ray Davis running the ball. Running the ball really up the middle. If you watch Ray Davis in any of these games, Ray Davis, he does not go bounce outside much. He's not, one of these, I guess, you want to call them scat backs, whatever, who's going to sit there and wait and bounce it outside or whatever. He's pretty much just taking that handoff and running right up the middle, and he's had some very good success with that, especially against, Florida. In that game, Devin Leary had 66 yards through the air. Ray Davis had like 280-something yards rushing. He ran all over them boys. That's their offense, Ray Davis. That's all you really need to know. They do have good playmakers out wide, but Devin Leary, he's been pretty bad. He's leading the SEC in picks with 7. His completion percentage is, I believe, under 60%. He was, probably the best transfer quarterback other than Sam Hartman last year. Maybe y'all can name me another one, and I'm just forgetting. But a few years ago, he had a really good season at NC State, but he's not put it together this year. They're still 5-2, but their offense is Ray Davis. Tennessee's offense, what do they do well? Well, also they run the ball. One of the best rushing attacks in the SEC. Obviously, last week Alabama held them to about 130. Still not a bad day at the office, but just with the way everything was going, they didn't really have success running the ball. In this game, something I believe that's a big factor for both teams is which quarterback, is more consistent and which quarterback makes the least mistakes. Joe Milton, everybody knows about Joe Milton. He is who he is. Pretty much he's not going to win you a ball game, but hopefully your hope is to win with him, because you're probably not going to win because of him. He has been banged up this season, and people don't realize that. In the UTSA game, he suffered a knee injury, and he was wearing a brace for several weeks, and he really didn't get out of the pocket and run too much. He also, what has come out recently, he's also been battling some rib injuries, so that also adds to the reason why he's not been running much. Also, side note, and I could go all day, I'm going to try to keep it, fairly short. And I was wondering this too. Why, if you watch the Alabama-Tennessee game, why is Tennessee on 4th and short? Why are they not going under center? Why are they taking handoffs out of the freaking shotgun? You got your running back there flat-footed. You get, you're basically letting, the defense get ahead of steam, and it just was not working, and it was questionable. Well, Tennessee earlier in the season a few times, they ran, whether you want to call it the tush push, QB sneak, whatever, they ran that. So they do that. That was before Cooper Mays came back. That's Tennessee's center. I will call him Tennessee's most valuable player on offense. Just the difference from when he was out injured and the difference now in that offensive line is incredible. He gets them into whatever scheme they need to be in, blocking and so on and so forth. Joe Milton, he's been hurt. I think I finally, and I texted Zack this earlier, I think I finally figured out a reason why they don't go under center. And that is because, and I think they don't want to risk Cooper Mays getting hurt or also Joe Milton getting hurt. They said Joe Milton may have gotten hurt earlier in the season by one of the people pushing him, and that may be the reason why his ribs were hurt. So that's my reason. I'm not using that as a cop-out. I wish we'd see that in short yardage situations. Other than that, rant, like I said, Kentucky, their offense is Ray Davis. Ray Davis runs the ball up the middle primarily. Ray Davis usually does not bounce outside. Tennessee's defensive line is one of the best in the SEC. They took a little step back against Alabama in that second half, but Kentucky is not Alabama. Now, it's going to be, this isn't going to be like a Florida crowd or an Alabama crowd, but it's a night game at Kroger Field. They're still going to be riled up. They announced earlier they're going to do a blackout in the stadium, so, the fans are going to be excited that Kentucky always gets up for this game because Tennessee has owned them for, pretty much the existence of this football game. I think Ray Davis will have some success running the ball, but I think Tennessee's defensive line, especially if you try to run it up the middle, they stop that all the time. I think they're going to be able to shut that down, and it's going to be on Will Levis to win you this ball game. Will Levis, just having flash of that nightmare in Neyland last year where he crapped his pants and got blown out and threw 3 picks. My bad. Devin Leary. And to be honest with you, I don't just trust Joe Milton a lot to win you a ball game, but I have less trust in Devin Leary to go win Kentucky a football game. I think Tennessee will be able to run pretty well against Kentucky's defensive line. They're not bad, and I think Joe Milton he'll play a solid game. It ain't gonna be anything spectacular, but I think he makes less mistakes than Leary. And also, if you watched that Alabama game last week, he is finally running that ball again, and when he runs, that opens up the Tennessee offense. Now, receivers got to go make plays too. Squirrel White is playing good ball right now. The other receivers have not played well, and I don't know why that is. Somebody else on the outside is going to have to step up to do that. But even if Tennessee's offense is just Squirrel White and Joe Milton and the running backs run the ball, I think that's enough for Tennessee to win this football game, plain and simple. And maybe that's orange-tinted glasses. Maybe that's me, just looking at history and saying we own Kentucky, and I'll admit this just like Florida has owned us. But I really don't see a way Kentucky wins this ball game unless Tennessee comes out and just absolutely lays an egg and craps their pants. Give me Tennessee to win. I'm dropping down a little lower than I texted you earlier, Zach. Give me Tennessee to win 31-20.
31-20. He takes the Vols at Kroger Field to get it done. Brandon, let's throw it over to you. I mean, Taylor just gave us a whole wealth. He's a fire hydrant of knowledge.
Oh, he is.
What do you think? Or you might not have much to say after that, but
well, there is not much more to say. But hey, look, yeah, I agree on the Ray Davis thing. He's Kentucky's. That's their offense right there. Ran all over Florida early in the year. He's right now on only 111 carries. I say only 111. That's actually a pretty good number, I would say, right, Zach?
Yeah.
At this point in the season, 781 yards, 8 touchdowns. If they can't manage to utilize more weapons in this game, see, we went back to what we were talking about with Georgia. Georgia is not a one-dimensional team, not a two-dimensional team. Kentucky, we had hope for them early in the year. They started off pretty hot. We wanted to see what they could do against Georgia. That was their real test, and we saw that they couldn't get much done in that game. And, here comes Missouri out of nowhere, surpassing them in at least the race for the East. But in this game right here, I think Tennessee obviously gets it done. Regardless of where this game is played, I think it's going to be a 6 p.m. That is Central Time kick. Great atmosphere and could end up being a great game. I anticipate it being a great game. And that line was what? Is it 3.5?
3.5.
Oh, boy. I will take Tennessee. Ooh, it's kind of tough here. I feel like that's a pretty close line, honestly. Seems like it's too close. But Tennessee covers that easily. Ooh. 31, I'll say 31. 31-14.
Wow, 31-14.
I hope you're right, and that would make a Vols win would make my day Saturday. But if it's 31-14, that'll be even better. It's one less touchdown.
All right, well let's look at it this way, Taylor. Like, does it come down to, obviously, like with any game, if you've got plus numbers in the turnover category, that can severely affect your game. Like, how does mistakes play into the outcome of this game? Like, is that going to be something that Tennessee is going to have to worry about, for example?
I mean, it could. Obviously, it could, but this isn't. This game isn't at the Swamp. This game isn't in Bryant-Denny against Alabama. This game isn't against Georgia. I mean, if you lose the turnover margin, let's say 1-0, I think Tennessee could still get a win. Obviously, Kentucky's not terrible, but they're not world beaters. If let's say if you lose the turnover, battle 3-0, you're in trouble there.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't think I don't think let's say this is where the turnovers come. Like last week, there was a strip sack that Alabama took to the house against us. I don't think Kentucky's going to be able to get that kind of pressure against Tennessee. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's orange-tinted glasses.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think Joe Milton's going to put it in harm's way against Kentucky. I don't know if they're going to bring anything, too elusive at him that they're going to confuse him a lot, where they maybe, hide a safety or something like that. So, my answer would be like if you make some boneheaded plays and turn the ball over doing stupid stuff, you're going to get yourself into trouble. But I just don't see this being a turnover-heavy game for Tennessee.
Well, I guess it's time for my prediction. Famously, I predicted before the season Kentucky to beat Tennessee, and I got drug on that there TikTok.
Ooh, you did.
Over 100 comments on that video.
That was a hot video.
Good.
I would say out of the 100 comments, no kidding, at least 80 of the 100 comments were Tennessee fans. I guess because we put hashtag balls on it, I guess they found my TikTok, and man, they drugged me. I got called every name in the book because I said Kentucky would beat Tennessee. I was told it's impossible. Tennessee can't lose to Kentucky. They don't do it. They own Kentucky, which they do, and it's impossible, and there's no way that this Tennessee team could lose to Big Blue, and this isn't basketball, even though I think Tennessee's beat Kentucky in basketball recently, haven't they, or no?
Yes.
Well, I've got told that this isn't basketball, this is football.
Yeah.
Kentucky's a basketball school. There's no way Big Orange loses to Big Blue.
Hey, there was some. TikTok flagged some of the comments.
Yeah, they got banned
literally
because they cussed me like a dog.
Yeah.
But anyway, with that being said, look, this game, it's a blackout game. It's at Kroger Field. It's a night game. Where's Kentucky? Where did they play last week? They didn't. They've been sitting at home. They're coming off bye week. Tennessee's coming off of a tough loss at Alabama, where you know, obviously you dominated the first half. The second half, Alabama dominated. I do wonder if that's going to affect the psyche of some of these Tennessee players. Not saying it will. I'm not sure.
Twice.
The what?
Said you can't let Alabama beat you twice. They better wipe that clean.
Well, that's one of my thoughts. Is that going to affect the way Tennessee plays? Is it not? Here's what I think, and I've gone back and forth. I think this is going to be a game down to the wire. I think Kentucky's going to come in prepared. Obviously, Tennessee's going to come in prepared, or they better. Both teams better come in prepared. I think it's going to be a great game. Here's my prediction, though. I'm going to stick with what I said in the preseason. I'm going to be a man of what I said. I mean, if I said it in the preseason, I'm going to try to stick with it. Give me Kentucky 27-24.
Ooh.
I think this game comes down to the wire, and here's what I think. I think Joe Milton's going to come out early in the ball game. I think he's going to make a mistake early. I think he's going to throw an interception. I think the crowd's going to get into it, fired up, and I think Joe's going to let it rattle him a little bit, and I think that crowd's going to be into it. And I said it in the preseason, so I'm sticking with it. Obviously, I think Tennessee's the better team, but I'm going to stick with what I said. Give me Kentucky 27-24, and if this happens, Taylor, let's just play the hypothetical here. I know you don't want to think about this.
I want to see Nico.
If this happens, you want Joe Milton bench for the rest of the year?
Well, it depends on how he plays. If they lose because of him, yeah, I want him. I want to see Nico because I mean, he won't. Look, listen to me. He won't be, but I would like to see it.
You don't think he plays any this year if they all lose this game? Like obviously garbage time, but I'm saying you don't think he'll get a start.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think he's starting.
You know, I don't want to do this to you because you're my friend, but let me give you another hypothetical. If Tennessee jumps out to a hot start like they did against Bama, let's just play the hypotheticals here. Let's say Tennessee's up 17-3 headed into halftime, and then Kentucky storms back and wins. What would be the talk around Rocky Top? Like what would the fans be saying? What would you be thinking if y'all were to blow like a 2-touchdown lead to Kentucky?
There'd be a whole wave of emotions. I don't know. It would, my thought would be, why the heck does this team just like fall asleep and, let these leads dwindle away, like you got to kill them when you get the chance. And that would be on the, Alabama's one thing, right? That's Alabama and they're coached by Nick Saban, but Kentucky, that would go back to coaching. Now, listen, I'm all in for Heupel. Look, he's very aggressive, and you live by that, you die by that. Some of those, fourth down calls last week, we would have liked to see him go under center or, punt the football. But Heupel's aggressive. That's how it's just how he runs his offense, and I respect it. But sometimes that gets you killed. I don't know. I would have, because I'm a big supporter of Heupel, and what he's done so far, he's turned this thing around quick. And I'm not saying that means Tennessee's going to go out and have, win the rest of their games this season or anything like that. But from where Tennessee was to where they are now, it really is light years, difference. But I would, I'd start to question, what's going on with the coaches? How are they not keeping their guys going? And I would go down that rabbit hole and that black hole of, oh my gosh, is this happening to us again? Is this going to happen where, we have a little bit of hope with this head coach and now it's all going to go in the crapper? That would be my thoughts.
Your crap counter's up to about 5 tonight.
Maybe I need a little to wash my mouth out. I don't know.
I have one more question on this game, then we'll jump to the last game in the SEC slate. And I know what time are we at, Ray? Like run time on the video.
We're an hour and 8 minutes.
All right, not as bad as I thought. But last question for you on this game, Taylor. This is Zack Ainsworth at Right Along Sports. I'd like to ask, okay, there was a time in the Alabama game in the second half where it just looked like Tennessee lost their composure. I don't remember boy's name, but he jumped off sides twice in a row. You know what I'm talking about.
Omar Norman Lott.
Yeah, and we've seen moments earlier this year where whatever the reason was, it looked like Tennessee lost their composure against Florida at the end of that game. With the kneel down, that's all in the past, obviously. Are you worried in this environment? I know it's Kroger Field and all that, but I think it will be rowdy. It's going to be a blackout. Are you worried about Tennessee possibly losing their composure or lid, or is that not even a thought you kind of go into this game with?
For me, again, maybe it's orange-tinted glasses. I'm not really thinking about that. Tennessee has struggled on the road. That's really one thing that Heupel hasn't, figured out how to do yet is win big games on the road, and not necessarily considering this a big game. Heupel beat them in the same time slot 2 years ago in a freaking shootout, nonetheless. But no, not really. The Florida thing, that to me that's like a unicorn out of that's night and day different from dude jumping off sides last week. He didn't say composure, but the game was absolutely lost, when they did that against Florida, and supposedly that guy told the defensive lineman that Graham Mertz was just going to take a step back and take a kneel, and then he got out and danced around, and they were just like, well, we got to go make a play. We got to try something. And last week, I don't know what old boy was thinking. My thought is, he hadn't played a few weeks because he was in concussion protocol, and he was just super juiced up and glad to be back for that game. And I don't know. He lost it. But no, I'm really not concerned about that, to be honest with you. If this was like a game at Georgia, which we're not playing at Georgia this year, yeah, I'd be concerned about that. And I'm not overlooking Kentucky. They can definitely win this game, but no, I'm not. And I could be very wrong on that, and they could lose their composure and, lay an egg Saturday, but I'm not.
Yeah, understood. Well, I think we broke down that game maybe more in depth than we've broken down any game so far this year. This one won't take much breaking down, I don't think. Last game on the SEC slate, we have the Ole Miss Rebels hosting the Vanderbilt Commodores. Vanderbilt, I don't have to say much. They're not very good. 2-5, 0-4 in conference. Ole Miss 6-1, 5-1 in conference, ranked 12th in the country. It's in Oxford at night. That doesn't help Vanderbilt, which I don't think it would have mattered if you played this in my backyard at 9 a.m. I think Ole Miss is going to win this ball game. I'll keep it short. They're a 23.5-point favorite. I'll take Ole Miss to cover that number. It's a night game in Oxford. Just give me Ole Miss to win. I'll throw a score out there. Give me Ole Miss 48 to 10. I think it's a blowout. Vanderbilt's not good. Ole Miss is a pretty good ball team, and I don't think they're going to look ahead of this game or anything like that. I think they're just going to handle business.
Yeah. Ryan V, if you're listening, Vandy is going to win. No, I'm kidding. Ole Miss is coming off 2 close games after that emotional win against LSU, where it was just back and forth. They're playing a very, very inferior opponent this week. I think they take their frustrations out after these 2 close games, and I think they put an absolute whooping on Vanderbilt. Earlier in the week I was thinking to myself, maybe Vanderbilt covers. I just don't see it happening. I think they explode on offense this week, and I don't see Vanderbilt doing much scoring. I'm obviously going to take Ole Miss to cover in this one. If I had to put a score on it, I'm going to go 42-13. That's covering, right?
Let me get my mathematician. Yeah, that's a cover. All right.
What was that?
42-13.
42-13.
Brandon, you're the Ole Miss fan in the room. I don't know if you have much to say about this one necessarily, but what are you going?
Well, if you have, if you're Ole Miss, it doesn't matter what kind of season you have. It always seems like Vanderbilt is I don't want to put it in the trap game territory. Maybe if you go back 10 years, maybe this is a sort of a trap game. I can remember pretty vividly back in, I believe it was 2013, where the Rebels and the Commodores were playing on a Thursday night up in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Big House. And, it was a pretty entertaining game. And Ole Miss, right there at the end of the game on the last drive, what was it, Jeff Scott, I believe.
Jeff Scott down the left sideline, 75. Yeah. We'll see you.
And, it seems like every year, regardless of the season that either of these two teams are having, something, I don't want to say something goes wrong, but Vanderbilt maybe hangs around a little bit too long. But now you've got a Vanderbilt team that's more of the same. They They're struggling. They're 2-6. They're still searching for a conference victory. I think if you're Vanderbilt and you get one conference win, I think that's a positive. Obviously, last year they beat Florida. Was it who else was it? Zack.
I believe they beat Kentucky.
It was yeah. This year, obviously a regression, and for Ole Miss, you've got a Jackson Dart's playing. He seems to be getting better and better. Hasn't made just a terrible amount of mistakes. He has, in the Alabama game, he forced a couple balls on the running side. Quinshon Judkins. He started the year a little bit slow. They seem to not be able to get in a rhythm running the football, but here as of late, him and Ulysses Bentley has been able to have it be a pretty good duo. And obviously through the air, I see him doing, as usual. I don't see him doing anything special this game. I don't think they have to do anything special this game. And Ole Miss covers, and I want to make sure that I get this right because I don't want to say they cover and my score is inaccurate. Yeah, we're good. I'm going to say Ole Miss 45-17. The Rebels get it done. The atmosphere in Vaught-Hemingway has been pretty great this year. This is going to be a night game, possibly the last night game at home this year. They're going to be ready to bring the house down. Crowd's going to be hot. Everybody's optimistic. You got a 6-1 team that still has a chance to, end this season really great, and hopefully, compared to last season, they obviously they haven't stalled out yet. This would be a good win going into a very tough game versus Texas A&M and Georgia, and the Egg Bowl is never easy. But the Rebels get the win 45-17, and they cover the spread.
Taylor, going back to that Tennessee-Kentucky game, I forgot to ask you a little trivia question I had picked out for you.
All right.
So you probably know this. In the last 10 years, Kentucky has only beat Tennessee twice in the last 10 seasons. Who were the starting quarterbacks for Kentucky that beat Tennessee in the last 10 seasons? And if you want the years, I can give you that.
Well, I know the years. It's 2020 and 2017.
Correcto mundo.
Well, I know who Kentucky's starting quarterback was in 2020.
Who was it?
It was Jarrett Garantano, who threw I believe he threw 2 pick sixes in that game, so he threw 2 touchdowns at Kentucky. I think JT Shroud also had a pick in that game.
Well, I didn't ask who Tennessee's quarterback was.
Well, he played quarterback for Kentucky that day too, throwing them touchdowns.
Oh, I see your joke now. Now, who was Kentucky's quarterback?
Gosh, what is that guy's name? Wasn't it the guy that they maybe in 17, maybe it was 20, the guy that they converted from a quarterback to a receiver?
That was 2020, I believe, the guy you're thinking of. I'll give you a hint on him. He was a transfer to Kentucky, and then he also transferred out of Kentucky.
Dude, I'm drawing a blank, man.
The quarterback in 2020 was Terry Wilson.
Terry Wilson's who I was thinking about. Let me try to think of 17. I think I might get this. Just give me. I'm holding up, and this is probably hard to listen to, but
I'll keep him entertained. Do 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 do.
His last name Johnson.
It ends in the same letters.
What?
Oh, no, it was Johnson. What's his first name?
I couldn't tell that. I just remember Johnson.
Stephen Johnson.
Stephen Johnson.
Or Stephen. I don't know what he went by. but I don't even remember the cat. And that's saying something if I don't remember him that well. So he beat Tennessee, though.
That was the defining moment of his career.
All right, let's go to the last game. It is Oregon at Utah to play the Utes. This is probably the biggest game of the weekend. I believe College Game Day will be there. Number 8, Oregon at number 13, Utah. Both 6-1, both 3-1 in conference. Utah's only loss being to somebody help me, I forget. Who did Utah lose to? Washington? I can't remember. Oregon's only loss is to Washington. I can't remember who Utah lost to at the moment. But anyway.
Utah lost to Oregon State.
That's right. Utah lost to Oregon State. All right. I'll keep it pretty simple. This is the Pac-12. Not my specialty. We've been running for a while now. Arms getting tired. Give me Oregon to win. I know it's at Utah, and they've won like 16 or 18, something like that, home games in a row. I don't care. Oregon's defense isn't USC's defense. They're a lot better than that. Oregon and Bo Nix. Bo Nix has been great all year for them. Don't think today's going to be any different. And I know, like I said, it's at Utah. It's a tough place to play, tough place to win. Kyle Whittingham's a great coach, and he gets the most out of his talent and his team. But I don't think Utah is able to score enough points with their offense against Oregon's defense with their backup quarterback. And I know they're 6-1 with a backup quarterback. I hear you. I just think Oregon's the better team, and I think this is a big win for Oregon. And I'll take the Ducks. What's the spread, Brandon? 6.5. Give me the Ducks to win 35-17. I think they get it done pretty easily. I don't know. I just think Oregon's got the better team, and that's my feel on this one. Taylor?
Let me ask you a little trivia question real quick. In terms of total defense, who has the best defense in the Pac-12?
In terms of total defense, who has the best defense in the Pac-12? Probably Utah.
Wrong. They're second. UCLA's number 1. How crazy is that? UCLA's giving up 282 yards a game. Utah's giving up 295. Oregon's right behind them, giving up 312. Listen, Utah, in terms of numbers, their defense might be better, but they are not getting this done with rolling that quarterback out that they got. If Cam Rising was playing, this may be a different story. But I think Oregon's going to impose their will on Utah. That's just my opinion. And maybe I'm saying that because in discussion with some of my friends earlier this year, had picked Oregon to win the Pac-12 and to go to the playoff. They're going to have a tough time with Washington probably in the Pac-12 championship game. But regardless of that, give me Oregon. Give me 35-14.
All right, Brandon, it's up to you. What do you got? You rolling with the Utes, keep that home winning streak alive, or are you quacking?
Absolutely not. I've said about every game this year, every game that Oregon's been in, the number one key to the game, or the road to victory as we like to call it, Bo Nix. He's going to have a field day, I think. And Utah's, I don't think they're going to be able to get much done on offense. They 6.5, way too close of a spread here. I think we are all in agreement on that. But I'm saying 31-13 Oregon. They get it done, and they just continue their wrath in the Pac-12.
All right, so we all pick the Ducks to get a win there in Utah and break that winning streak for Kyle Whittingham and the Utes. And we want to thank Taylor for joining us, giving us his precious, precious time to come on here and to pick these games. It was a blast, and I think we had good reasons for every game, and I think the people at home will really enjoy that. And Taylor, you have anything you want to say before you sign off?
Yeah, this is going to go down because I was on here the best episode of Ride Along Sports ever. You're welcome. All my picks are correct, and I will be looking forward to that check coming in my mailbox soon.
Follow him on Twitter at Mr. Chasey VFL. Mr. Chasey VFL. It's where you'll find him and all his premium Tennessee content, and it's not behind a paywall. Thank you, Taylor, for joining us, and we will catch you later.
We'll see you.
Appreciate it, man. All right.
So as that's wrapped up, look, we were going to talk about the Michigan stuff, and Brandon doesn't know this, but I'm tired, and I need to get home.
I don't
and
believe that.
I'm hungry, and
yeah.
Me and Brandon both drove a lot today. We won't say. You could probably read our shirts, but we drove a lot today, and I know
we work hard.
I know
we
he's
work
probably
hard at every single
tired.
thing we do.
If my bosses are out there, we worked hard.
We did. Hey, and look, in the Michigan thing, that's
a
whole show in
There's more
itself.
stuff breaking right now. I just looked.
Look, I say we let it develop.
Yeah.
It is a mess. It may just be a big. It may not end up going anywhere. We'll just have to see.
It's going somewhere,
and
it ain't a good place for Michigan. I can tell you that. And it just broke that TCU knew in the playoff game that Michigan had cheated, so they made fake signals.
Oh.
And there's a whole bunch of look. I'd recommend following Ross Dellinger or Pete Thamel on Twitter. They're covering it like nobody's business. They post stuff every hour about it. There is literally so much evidence and stuff coming out. We're not the experts on that. We'll let them figure it out. I don't think it's going to be good for Michigan, but then again, I don't know. And I don't want to waste your time talking to you about it because look, let's be honest, Ride Along Sports isn't the only podcast you're listening to, and if you're listening to another college football podcast, you're hearing about the Michigan stuff, and we don't want to waste your time. Look, man, we're trying to build this from the ground up. We're just two guys that are passionate about college football and making content. We don't have a budget for this show. We don't have sponsors, but we do have passion, and we really want to build this up. Follow us on TikTok at Ride Along Sports. Follow us on X at the same handle, and man, we're doing good. We've seen some analytics and data, and according to Brandon, it's looking good. He's our analytics guy.
Yep.
And thank you all for listening. Share this with your friends and get the word out. Ride Along Sports is the place to go.
Yep, that's right.
For SEC football coverage. Thank you for riding with us. Brandon, do you have anything you want to plug or tell the people on the way out? Hey, and if you have any ideas for the show or questions, you can email us at ridealongsports@gmail.com, and we will get to those questions, but we want to open that up to y'all. We might even do a mailbag episode if we get enough questions, but ridealongsports@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening. Close us out, Brandon.
Oh man, look, we're just trying to bring the best content that we can. College football is our passion, but we understand that the season is only so long, and after that, there's so much more to talk about. We're going to be here, season or no season. We don't run on that notion. We're 365, baby, 52 weeks a year, and we're just going to do this as much as we can. Let us know if you took the time to listen or watch. We simulcast this on Spotify and everywhere you find podcasts. That's Apple Podcasts and beyond.
Plug our YouTube, I forgot.
Yeah, we're Ride Along Sports. You can find us on YouTube. We have some shorts there, but mainly you can see these live streams. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and as soon as I hit the button to start the live stream, you will be notified. Of course, if you manage to miss it, it'll be on the channel afterwards. It'll be in the podcast audio format. I know that myself personally, I like to listen to audio during the day, and I just hope that we can continue to bring great content that you all appreciate, and we sure do appreciate it. No doubt about that.
Ride safe, everyone, and we will see y'all next Thursday.
Peace.